And while we're on time, just letting everyone know that the question, my question will be this one on the right. For question after the press conference, it's going to be the mic here on the right. Pour les questions, ça va être le mic ici à ma droite. Yeah, there's a mic for questions. You have to walk over there to ask one. Yeah, so I'm saying that because I realized you don't want to trust this floor after it started. So everybody goes in there. I assume so. That's a classic question follow-up. But the moderator, she's going to come with the minister, so I don't know. Nope. What?
summer day in Canada, you know, why not? So it's great to, great summer day in Canada, you know, it's great to have you, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde, c'est un grand plaisir de vous accueillir ici aujourd'hui pour première rencontre du G7. So good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be with all of you. Welcome to Canada, for those who travel from afar. This is going to be our very first press conference, and I have the privilege and the honor to be with Sergei Marchenko, my dear colleague from Ukraine. We had the chance to meet earlier today, and I think it is very telling to the world that we have our Ukrainian friend with us for the G7 summit. You know, it sends a strong message to the world that we are, all of us, recommitting to support Ukraine. We're going to hold Russia to account. And we're also going to talk about what we're going to be doing in terms of reconstruction. You know, the discussion we had at the international level, there's a moral imperative for all of us to support our Ukrainian friend in reconstruction. They fought for democracy, not only for them, but for the world. And we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with our Ukrainian friend to make sure that we bring an end to this conflict, but at the same time that we look forward in reconstruction. So this morning I had the privilege with Sergei to meet a number of pension funds and a number of very important investors to look at what's going to come next. You may have seen the report from the IMF that the reconstruction effort in Ukraine is going to be north of $500 billion US over a decade in order to rebuild this country, build back better together. And today was a moment that we could share. There's a lot that we could do together. We talked about energy infrastructure. We talked about infrastructure like roads, ports, railway. We talked about defense technologies. We talked about energy. You know, Canada is an energy superpower. So what we can do with them with respect to hydro, to nuclear energy, also to oil and gas, and what we can bring together to this table. So it was a very interesting moment. We talked also how we could work together eventually to share best practices in building a pension system in Ukraine. And so therefore we're going to continue that. You know, there's another big meeting coming in Rome in July, and we're going to be hosting a dinner, myself and the finance minister, with a number of colleagues from around the world, investors, business people, people who are going to be making sure that we build a bridge that we need between the private sector, the public sector, the international financial organization. So with that, I'll leave the floor to my dear friend Sergei. Welcome to Canada. Bienvenue au Canada. It's a real honor to start this G7 meeting side by side with my Ukrainian colleague. And on behalf of all of us in the world and your G7 colleagues, thank you for fighting for democracy. Thank you for fighting for dignity. And you can rest assured that we are all committed to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, my friend. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me admit that we are grateful for the Canadian government, the support for the providing for Ukraine during this very harsh year for Ukraine. During the war, Canada provided Ukraine quite significant amount of support. And the invitation to be here, it's a great honor for us because it helps us to better provide the necessary information about the situation on the ground, to understand how we can collectively provide necessary action with G7 countries for support of Ukraine, for reconstruction of Ukraine, for better future of Ukraine. And we are grateful for my colleagues François Philippe for inviting me to be here. You know, it's again and again remembering that Ukraine's war, it's not only about suffering of Ukraine's people, it's suffering of all people which is eager to support Ukraine this time. And specifically right now during G7 ministerial meetings we will be able to discuss all necessary and critical issues which are related to Ukraine reconstruction and rebuilding. Well, I hope we have a very productive discussion during the next several days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be happy to take your question, and I think we're going to start there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we will do one question, one follow-up. Please state your name, your media, and your country. Donc, on va maintenant commencer la période de questions.
I think I know his country, by the way. I think this guy.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne, for taking our questions, and thank you for your time. I'm Pramit Mukherjee from Reuters, based in Ottawa. I wanted to ask you that what are the key objectives that are top of your mind, which you achieved, then at the end of these 2-3 days, you can say that these meetings were a success?
Well, I think this is a very consequential moment for the G7 and the world. Our role is to restore stability and growth. And I would say those are the two main objectives. We're celebrating 50 years of the G7. For those who have memory, the G7 meeting started in 1975 in France. And now Canada holds the presidency for the G7. So this meeting is happening on the 50th anniversary. So for me, it's going back to basics, making sure that together we are the voice of the largest economy in the world. And I think to deliver for the citizens that we represent, our mission is really about restoring stability and growth. We're going to be talking about a number of things. You may have seen the agenda is it's a very ambitious agenda. We want to discuss, this is a follow-up to the great work that were done by Italian friends under their presidency and the work we did together in Washington just a few weeks ago. And at the same time, this is about leadership. This is Canada setting the global agenda with our colleagues to make sure that we deliver for our citizens. And I very much look forward for the discussion over the next few days.
Minister.
Écoutez, d'abord, je suis très content d'accueillir mes collègues ici parce que les thèmes qui sont importants durant cette réunion-là du G7, c'est de restaurer la stabilité et la croissance. C'est un peu, vous savez, on est au 50e anniversaire des réunions du G7. Les premières réunions du G7 ont commencé de mémoire en France en 1975. C'était la toute première rencontre du G7. Donc, le Canada a la présidence à un moment crucial de l'histoire, 50 ans plus tard. C'est un retour aux sources, croissance, stabilité, pour vraiment amener cette prospérité-là à l'échelle mondiale. Et il y a un rôle important pour le Canada dans ce contexte-là géopolitique, d'amener le leadership. Alors, j'ai hâte de pouvoir discuter avec mes collègues. On a beaucoup de choses à l'agenda, de la croissance, on a parlé des crimes financiers. Donc, on a un agenda complet et j'ai hâte de pouvoir commencer, puis de commencer aujourd'hui avec mon collègue ukrainien. Cette première rencontre qu'on a, c'est une très bonne chose, un bon message pour le monde.
Minister Champagne, we are in a world which is fragmenting because of the trade policies by US, because of a lot of other things that US's policies towards Ukraine and its relationship with Russia. As the chair of G7 finance leaders, what will be your main message to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent?
Well, I mean, we're delighted that Secretary Bessent is with us in Banff. We're delighted that we have the chairman of the Federal Reserve, which are with us. Their voice really matters. We're going to continue to engage in a very constructive discussion, as we did when we were in Washington just a few weeks ago. There's big things that we need to do together. We've been talking about overcapacity. We've been talking about non-market practices. And I can tell you, colleagues, we are in touch on a very regular basis. And we want to tackle the big things. We talk about financial crime to growth to prosperity. And that's why I say this is a G7 meeting of going back to basics, what the G7 was meant for. And I very much look forward to the contribution of Secretary Bessent. All the colleagues are very eager to meet with him and to really have a chance to discuss, frankly, openly, how we can work together, how we can be united and send a strong message to the world.
But not tariffs.
Well, listen, we always talk about the issues that are front and center. There's no doubt that, like I said, we are united. That's the outcome when we came out of the meeting we had in Washington. But there was always tension around tariffs, as you would expect. But at the same time, there's a lot we can achieve together. There's a lot that we are looking to coordinate our actions and really tackle some of the big issues around overcapacity, non-market practices, financial crimes. So the spirit around the table is constructive. The spirit around the table is action. The spirit around the table is to send a strong message to the world, and that's what is going to drive us over the next few days.
Prochaine question, s'il vous plaît. Next question.
Hi, my name is Imad. I'm from Al Arabi TV network. I'm based in DC. So my question is about the statement that was put out yesterday by Britain, France, and Canada about the Israeli offensive in Gaza. So my question is this something that you're going to discuss during these meetings, especially that the statement mentioned that there might be concrete actions if this offensive didn't come to an end? And would sanctions, as a finance minister, would sanctions or could it be considered as a measurement or an action to kind of pressure Israel to stop the offensive?
Well, first of all, welcome to Canada, sir. We're delighted to have you with us. I will let the statement speak for itself. I think this is for the leaders to discuss. Our mission here is going to be focused on the agenda item that we have set for ourselves, which is around stability, around growth, around tackling how we can have more productivity, prosperity for the nations that we represent. So I would say this would be a discussion for the leaders more than for the finance minister, and therefore I would leave it there for the time being.
Next question.
Why don't you stay there? I think you come from Canada, right?
Somewhere
Yeah,
about.
somewhere.
Steve Chase with the Globe and Mail. I want to return to the same subject. You talked about the conflict in Ukraine, but I want to talk about the conflict in Gaza. Yesterday, the Canadian government made an extraordinary statement. It teamed up with the UK and France to threaten targeted sanctions, to threaten concrete actions against Israel if it doesn't stop its renewed military conflict in Gaza and didn't remove the curbs on aid. So Benjamin Netanyahu said that Canada and France and the UK are handing a gift to Hamas, effectively rewarding them for the October 7th attack. What do you say to that?
Well, like I said, there was a statement issued yesterday. I would say, Steve, we've been very focused today about the G7 agenda. We have the finance minister of Ukraine with us. The whole focus of the day for us has been around the G7, work that we need to do, very important work for the world. And therefore, like I said, I would leave the leaders to comment on that. And that's really something for the leaders as opposed to really the finance ministers to comment on these particular issues.
You've delayed the budget this year until the fall. Each year since the Russia's all-out assault on Ukraine, you've had money in the budget for Ukraine, extra money, financial support, so Ukraine can run its country. Can we expect that support, more financial support for Ukraine in the fall budget? And what progress, if any, have you made in seizing Mr. Abramovich's plane and transferring the assets, or seizing his assets and transferring the $26 million to Ukraine?
Well, first of all, let me go back to the budget. That's a real Canadian issue. By the way, welcome to a summer day in Canada. It should pass. Going back to the budget, I mean, the Prime Minister and I talked with respect to the budget, and there will be a budget in the fall, and I think this is a prudent approach. Like we said, there's going to be a lot of things leading up to that. There's the NATO summit that is going to come in June that's going to have an impact on defense investments. There's going to be also the review of spending and efficiency of the Canadian government. And there will also be, discussions with our U.S. friend, and we'll have a better sense of the global macroeconomic picture by then. And I think that's why we will be in a position to present a full budget, a prudent, and I think that's a prudent approach, and that's what Canadians want to see. They want us to be transparent, they want us to be prudent, they want us to be ambitious. On the statement you made, you will know because you've been following us for a couple of years now, I think. I'm not going to comment on what might be in the budget coming in the fall, but what I would say as a general statement, you have seen Canada, as many other allies standing shoulder to shoulder with our friends in Ukraine. And the kind of support that you have seen Canada providing to Ukraine will continue. And that's why today, and the fact that we have Minister Marchenko with us here in Canada as a special guest is a big signal to the world that we are standing side by side with our Ukrainian friend, that we're going to hold Russia to account, and that we're going to all be part in this reconstruction for the Ukrainian people.
Prochaine question, next question.
Good afternoon, Eric Hertzberg, Bloomberg News. I'm at Ottawa. Does Canada plan to explore tariffs fees on imports of low-value Chinese products from companies like Temu, Shein? Is that something that will be discussed this week?
Well, this is something that that we have started to discuss, I would say, as G7 in terms of low-value shipments that have come in our respective countries. It creates a number of issues, as you would expect, some around, the control at the border. There's other issues that come with that, as you would expect in terms of making sure that we have all the safeguards in place, that people don't use these low shipments, for example, to smuggle different things in different jurisdictions. So we are on, I would say, we have an eye on this issue. So there'll be discussions this time. We started that discussion, but certainly the low-value shipments have created a number of things that we want to discuss amongst ourselves and see how we can progress that discussions, because it's not only about the revenues, but it's really about, the customs and making sure that we protect our respective jurisdiction, that these packages are not used to smuggle things in different jurisdictions.
And as a follow-up, is a discussion of a lower price cap on Russian oil part of the talks taking place this week? And Mr. Champagne, would you support exploring that measure or any additional sanctions on Putin?
Maybe Sergei wanted to say something on that.
Of course, for us, it was a good idea to impose caps on oil price, and right now it's a good chance to revise this existing price cap, and it's our position. We would like to reiterate that it's a good time to make it lower, to make Russia economy suffer, because they use this money for military needs, and that's why it's important to impose stricter sanctions on Russia.
Next question.
Paul Vieira, Wall Street Journal.
How are you doing, sir?
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Maybe just as a follow-up on that question, is there going to be will either you, Mr. Marchenko, or other G7 members will you talk to Mr. Bessent about reimposing tariffs on Russia?
During our meetings, during these days, we will find a chance to reiterate our position towards sanctions on Russia, and we would like these sanctions will be stronger, because it's only possible way how to impose definitely necessary sanctions on Russia for them to make necessary agreements when we have discussions related to peace.
Okay. As a follow-up, Mr. Champagne, you talked about that there's been tension about trade, and you say that this G7 is about going back to basics. But so if we're going back to basics, the business community would argue that we need more predictability, more certainty. Won't going back to basics then involve a deep discussion and potentially tense discussion about trade policy?
Well, I mean, that's why I say we need to go back to the basic and restore stability and focus on growth. I agree with you. Stability, predictability, rule of law are the fundamental ingredients to prosperity, and so therefore we're going to be talking about that. But there's a lot for us to talk about. Clearly we have addressed these issues last time we met in Washington, and I think the message from colleagues is pretty clear: is that a free and fair and a rule-based multilateral trading system is a system in which we all win. And therefore, we certainly want to provide stability to consumer. We certainly want to provide stability to investors. We certainly want to provide stability to businesses. And therefore, that's why, for me, restoring stability, focusing on growth is going back to basic, because if you look at the G7 in its history, it's always about driving prosperity around the world on a macro level. So that's why these discussions at this particular moment in time are crucial for the world economy. And I think the world's going to be watching the discussions we have, but also the actions and the outcome that come from the meeting here in Banff in Canada.
Prochaine question.
Bonjour, Tiffany Roquette, Radio-Canada, basée à Calgary. Monsieur Trump parlait du Golden Dome aujourd'hui, disant que le Canada est intéressé par ce dôme antimissile. Est-ce que le Canada est intéressé à le financer?
Écoutez, comme je vous dis, aujourd'hui, j'ai passé la grande partie de la journée avec mon collègue, le ministre des Finances de l'Ukraine. Tout notre focus aujourd'hui était sur l'agenda du G7. Alors, c'est vraiment une question que je vais laisser au Premier ministre du Canada de s'exprimer au nom du Canada sur cette question-là.
Okay. Et en parlant de l'Ukraine, vous avez parlé d'entreprises privées, mais est-ce que le Canada, ou est-ce qu'à la fin de cette rencontre, on peut s'attendre à, comme il y a eu l'année dernière, des aides supplémentaires financières, des choses concrètes, des sanctions supplémentaires contre la Russie? Qu'est-ce que vous espérez qui sortira de concret pour aider l'Ukraine?
D'abord, c'est très concret d'avoir le ministre des Finances de l'Ukraine. Vous savez, c'est le seul collègue qui a été invité spécifiquement pour cette réunion-là du G7 à Banff, en Alberta. Donc, ça envoie déjà un signal, je pense, très fort de l'unité du G7 au support de l'Ukraine. Deuxièmement, je vous dirais, je ne veux pas présupposer des discussions qu'on aura parce qu'on commence à peine ce soir dans ces discussions-là, mais il y a certainement des idées qui sont sur la table qu'on va explorer avec les collègues. Et aujourd'hui, je vous dirais, c'est un pas dans cette direction-là parce qu'avec le ministre Marchenko, on a eu l'opportunité de discuter de choses très concrètes quand on a parlé du rôle que le Canada peut jouer dans la reconstruction, par exemple en matière d'énergie. On a parlé non seulement de l'énergie, mais on a parlé d'infrastructure, on a parlé de technologie de la défense, on a parlé d'énergie nucléaire, on a parlé des technologies dans le domaine du gaz et du pétrole, où le Canada a une expertise, une expérience qui peut contribuer. On a parlé même du raffinage dans les minéraux critiques. Donc, le Canada a beaucoup à offrir dans la reconstruction de l'Ukraine. Aujourd'hui, on est avec les grands fonds de pension canadiens. Vous savez, il y a des compagnies comme Fairfax qui sont des joueurs majeurs en Ukraine. Il y a des compagnies comme Econ. Donc, il y a déjà des compagnies canadiennes qui ont déjà une position, mais c'était une bonne première rencontre qu'on a eue avec le ministre Marchenko et on va poursuivre cette discussion-là à Rome lorsqu'on se verra avec des entrepreneurs pour passer du capital vers l'exécution de projets. Et là, je pense que le Canada peut vraiment se démarquer.
We will take one last question.
Thank you. Alan Rappaport with the New York Times in Washington, D.C.
Nice you brought the right coat, huh?
I know, ready for anything.
Yes.
Follow up on trade. Do you see the U.S. Tariff policies as a non-market practice that's a threat to global stability and growth? And will you be making that case to Secretary Bessent?
Well, what we want to do during this meeting is really to get unity behind the kind of policy that will restore stability and growth. I think that's what our citizens, that's what business, that's what investors are looking for. And therefore, that's what we're going to be focusing. And like I said, we are all committed. Coming out from the meeting in Washington, the spirit around the table is really around unity, sending a strong signal to investors around the world. And therefore, that's why I think the Banff meeting will go down as a very important meeting of the G7 to really have this opportunity amongst ourselves to discuss these issues, talk about non-market practices, talk about overcapacity, talk about growth policy, talk about combating financial crime. So there's a number of suite of things we need to discuss that are going to be very consequential for the world economy.
And then as a follow-up, U.S. lawmakers are moving forward with legislation that would open up the door to strong retaliation against countries that use digital service taxes or try to enforce the 2021 global tax deal. Is that something that you're concerned about since Canada has a digital services tax? Or are you going to raise that with Secretary Bessent?
Well, there's going to be a number of things that I'll be addressing with Secretary Bessent. You always pay attention to what other countries are doing. But as you know, every country is sovereign, you know, in how they determine what's in their best interest and their tax policy. The meeting of the G7 is really one where you try to find common ground. common actions, common practices. And I think that's where we're going to be focusing amongst each other to look at the number of issues where you talk about low-value shipment, for example, not you, but one of your colleagues. Those are the type of things that, you know, we can start thinking together and say, what is the impact in our various economies? What are the things that we could consider together? And what are the actions that we could consider? There'll be also a session about growth, which is, like when I say going back to basic, I think part of our mission is really to make sure that we come out of this meeting with the international organization with an ambitious agenda to deliver growth in our various jurisdictions. And again, going back to basics, you know, having a fair, free, and rule-based multilateral trading system is one of the fundamental, I would say, element to make sure that we bring that stability and prosperity to our nations. Merci tout le monde. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you over the next few days, my friend.